Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Lenox Justifier of Innocence, created by Zeus and Demeter to save humanity. I am here as the character Josephine, and with me today is Mr. Buddy the guard dog. Now, today we're doing something a little bit different in honor of Spooky Week for Halloween. So we're going to interrupt our normal programming and do some ghost stories of hauntings, current and past. For those of you who are returning to the channel, thank you all for your support and for continuing to watch along. And for those of you who are new to this channel, this is a fantasy justice channel where superheroes and mythological gods unite in the fight to save humanity, to restore the balance of good and evil. It is designed so that you can listen like an audiobook, or you can watch and enjoy the dramatizations, the artwork, and the images across the screen to guide you along like a picture book. This channel piggybacks off the book series titled Lenox Justifier of Innocence. The first of the series is available at all major book retailers, so you can get yourself a copy of that and get caught up on what this channel is about. Now you want to make sure you stay to the end so that you find out what's going on next on this channel and in this particular storyline. So this week we're doing the Spooky Week, and some of the stories are broken down into two parts, as these are based on real hauntings that have happened, and we are going to do our best to depict all the stories and create a spooky week for you. We'll see you at the end. It is known that Massachusetts is a very haunted state, one of the oldest states, steeped in history, bloodshed, war, famine, and witch hunts. It comes to no surprise that many homes have a presence, a lingering essence of lives past, with homes still standing from the 1800s and early 1900s, with the oldest home in Dedham dating back to 1637. Oh, if the walls could talk, which leads me to the Prescott Street portal. It was the mid-1980s, a mixed-race family considered taboo at the time, a Puerto Rican mom and her kids, with a French-Canadian and his kids. Those closest to the family would joke and say they were the modern-day Brady Bunch. They were so happy to have closed on their first home as a family on Halloween morning. Being the 31st, they didn't want to be stuck paying for another month's rent, so no trick-or-treat or Halloween parties. They needed to be done with the move. The little one, the youngest of the mom's four, was the most disappointed out of all the kids. This meant she would be missing out on the holiday altogether. The older ones could go out later, but for the little one, it was especially disappointed because Halloween was a day to dress up in fantasy, escaping reality, leaving the harshness of life behind in a costume while collecting at least 2 months worth of candy. Being just 10 years old, she was obviously bummed. But nevertheless, they completed the move, only to be left with the task of sweeping the old apartment in the morning. The home was older, built in 1900, full of charm of what once was, with crooked walls, crystal chandeliers missing pieces, and wall sconces that had seen better days, dated wallpaper throughout the home. The home was solid, though in need of some serious cosmetic TLC. Little Cassie was exhausted, almost ready for bed, when Aunt Betsy showed up with her cousin Muffy and a bag of candy that had Cassie's name written on the front. They wanted to welcome them to their new home since they had just moved in across the street themselves a month back, and they didn't want little Cassie to have completely missed out on Halloween fun. Off to sleep they all went. In the morning, little Cassie began to look around the home. She wasn't thrilled with how her room looked, but it was large, with a huge closet that had a window seat. She began to explore the many unique features of the home. While Dad was away settling up with the old apartment, Mom was busy unpacking when little Cassie was told to check out the basement for a surprise. The basement was full of many toys, trinkets, and treasures left behind by previous occupants. Full of excitement, she opened the door. But when she did, she stopped with apprehension. The entrance for the basement was in the back of a hallway closet that sat beneath the stairs that led to the second floor. The door was skinny and rickety, the stairs dark and narrow. The walls were different size, stones and boulders stacked together with concrete, and the floor was just dirt. There was a combination of must, mold, dirt, and a foul odor that filled the air. Mom chuckled when she noticed the fear in Cassie's eyes. She turned on the light, telling her to hold on to the wall as she descended down the rickety stone steps. When she got to the bottom, she shouted up that she did not see any toys. "They're in the other room," Cassie's mom shouted back. Cassie glanced to the end of the dark, smelly, creepy basement, still fearful, looking at a creepy dark wooden door with cracks throughout it, where she could see little streaks of sunlight peeking through the cracks. There must be a window in that room, she thought. She made her way over, slowly opening the door in fear of what was behind it. Oh, wow. All the fear melted away when she saw all the toys, old dolls, a music box, an old bicycle, and in her excitement, looking through everything, she lost track of time. The toys appeared to be in the 1940s, so she thought, possibly older, but in excellent condition. Though Cassie was merely 10 years old, she was fascinated by all things old and history. As she finished looking through the right side of the room, she looked up at the bulkhead that led to the outside yard, with large stone steps leading up it. To the left were shelves with boxes full of stuff. Ooh, so excited, she started to go through the boxes. There were old clothes, books, and then she came across a box of photo albums. They looked very fancy with gold-tone leather cover. She opened the first one to see ladies with big poofy ball gowns, intrigued by the fancy dresses they had on. But then she noticed the faces were all blackened out. As she continued to turn the pages, she started to notice all of the pictures had their faces blacked out, like when film is exposed to light before it develops. But it was only the faces. The ball gowns and the men in suits with tails and top hats, all could be seen, except their faces kept turning black as she turned the pages. Scared, she dropped the album. Scrambling to pick up another one, she quickly turned the pages to see if the other one was just damaged. But it was worse. She'd seen the faces briefly, their eyes piercing her as if they were piercing her soul before the faces blackened out completely. She was then paralyzed with fear when the clock went off. Then she could feel someone standing behind her, looking down at her. She could hear the deep, heavy breathing. Her heart raced. The room was freezing cold. Still holding the album, unable to let it go, she let out a blood-curdling scream, and then the music box started to play, followed by the old radio crackling. Her body was still frozen in fear, but she managed to find the strength to scream for her mother as loud as she could. Her mother came rushing down. What happened? Thinking something had fallen on her. In a panicked state, Kathy grabbed her mother, pointing to the photo albums. Her mother, thinking she was overreacting from having watched scary movies on Halloween night, calmed her down, saying it was just her imagination, I'm sure the albums are fine. When she picked one up and looked through it, her eyes doubled in size, and then she dropped it, grabbing Kathy and running up the stairs, locking both the basement doors behind her, and strictly instructing Kathy not to go down there. Cassie was confused by what just happened, but she still wanted the toys. Nope, her mother said in a stern voice. It's all gonna go. Kathy begged to keep a couple of them. They never had extra money for things like toys, so Cassie never had much to play with growing up. Mom agreed, but later that same day, she had the cousins come over and clear everything out of that room. Aunt Betsy came over. Cassie was crying, now back to not having any toys. She told her that she would get her a new doll to play with, and then turned to Cassie's parents, telling them to have a priest come from the church to come bless the house. After the blessing, things felt a little better in the house, except for when you passed by the basement door or it was open. You could still feel a presence, but it was dormant. Until the night of the Ouija board. About a year had passed, and a movie had come out about a group of 20-somethings who were all possessed and killed after using a Ouija board at a party. Cassie's older siblings, curious teenagers, wanted to mimic the movie. If you couldn't already tell, the family was as poor as the basement's dirt floor, so buying one was not an option. The eldest daughter made one from cardstock paper, and she arranged all the letters of the alphabet, the numbers 0 through 9, and the words yes and no in a circle, and then proceeded to light candles. The light being off, they grabbed the glass from the cabinet. Cassie and Muffy were not allowed to play with them. They watched as they asked it silly questions, and the glass began to move. Muffy then convinced Cassie to grab a glass and head upstairs. Why did you want the glass? Muffy responded that they were going to make their own Ouija board to see if this is real. With excitement, Cassie said, "Let's go." They quickly made their way upstairs. 2 Ouija boards were constructed and played with that night, in a house that already had a presence. The portal was now open. Things quickly began to escalate after that night, starting with everyone hearing voices, whispers, doors closing on their own, temperatures randomly dropping. The parents kept dismissing it, saying it was just an old house making noises. Radiators were not working, or overactive imaginations, but Kathy knew something was in that house. She started sleepwalking with her dark eyes wide open, staring her oldest sister down in the most ominous of ways. Looking possessed, screams could be heard throughout the house. Even the brother, the oldest, who did not believe in any of this, was afraid of Cassie, calling for Mom. "Don't wake her," she shouted, as she asked the middle child, Lydia, to help her get her safely back into the bed. Lydia refused in fear, throwing the blanket over her head. The next morning, Cassie, not remembering a thing, cheerfully playing by herself in the backyard when a black cat approached. She was as fluffy, friendly as can be, and adorable. Cassie went inside to get a can of tuna. She watched her eat. For the next few days, the kitty would come back to visit with Cassie. When Mom noticed, she took the kitty in. Having the kitty in the house made it feel lighter, freer than it had ever been. They all began to notice that whenever Cassie went to bed, the kitty would jump up onto the bed, rub her nose, and then proceed to do 3 circular laps around Cassie's body as she laid in the bed, then proceeding to jump off and lay in the middle of her doorway, almost as if she was guarding it. They later found out that cats are feared by demonic entities, revealed in ancient times as sacred animals that had the power to ward off evil spirits. For the next couple of years, things calmed down in the house, though you could still hear the occasional voices, the doors creaking open on their own, and feel a heavy presence whenever standing outside of the basement door. It was tolerable until the day came where Kitty had to be put down due to sudden kidney failure. The presence in the house began to escalate. They were tormenting the children and the parents, yet none of them would speak of it. They were scared of what it would do if they acknowledged its presence. But things started to come out of hand, and then the unimaginable happened. So that is going to conclude today's episode of the first day of 7 days of spookiness. Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to continue this story, and you will see how these demonic entities that are living in the Prescott Street home come to the surface. They are tired of lurking in the shadows and are going to make their presence fully known. So make sure you come back for the next episode to find out what happens in the Prescott Street portal.